In the vast and variegated landscape of human spiritual and mythological tradition, few figures loom as large or cast as long a shadow as the angel. These numinous beings, at once terrifying and fascinating, have served for millennia as potent symbols of the liminal space between the sacred and the profane, the infinite and the finite, the transcendent and the immanent. As the great religious scholar Mircea Eliade observes in his seminal work, The Sacred and the Profane, the threshold is the limit, the boundary, the frontier that distinguishes and opposes two worlds, and at the same time, the paradoxical place where those worlds communicate, where passage from the profane to the sacred world becomes possible. It is precisely this role as mediators of the divine-human encounter that makes angels such enduringly powerful and resonant symbols. In their varied guises, from the Seraphim and Cherubim of the Judeo-Christian tradition to the Malaika of Islam, from the Devas of Hinduism to the Dakinis of Tibetan Buddhism, angels serve as embodied manifestations of the sacred energies and intelligences that suffuse the cosmos. As the philosopher and mystic Rudolf Steiner writes in his lectures on the spiritual hierarchies and the physical world, the angels are the inhabitants of the astral world, the world of soul. They live in the realm of thought, their lowest member is the astral body, and their consciousness is an astral consciousness, a soul consciousness. Yet for all their ethereal and otherworldly qualities, angels are also deeply bound up with the drama of human existence. They are not remote or abstract entities, but rather active and dynamic participants in the unfolding of human history and the shaping of human destiny. They are a unity in diversity in themselves. As the Islamic scholar Sachiko Murata notes in her book, The Tao of Islam, the angels are the powers of God in created existence. To the extent that they are separate from God, they are creatures, but to the extent that they manifest the divine attributes and acts, they are divine. This dual nature of angels, as both divine emanations and created beings, is a key theme that will recur throughout our exploration of these powerful, elusive figures. For in their very liminality, their capacity to bridge the abyss or void existing between heaven and earth, angels hold up a mirror to the fundamental paradoxes and tensions that characterize the human condition. They reflect our deepest yearnings for transcendence and connection, our most profound hopes and fears, our noblest aspirations, and our darkest impulses. Isn't that how it works? To fully understand the significance of angels in human spiritual and cultural history, we must therefore approach them not merely as objects of detached academic study, but as living symbols that are also at the core of our being. We must be willing to engage with them on their own terms, as messengers, guardians, guides, and challengers, and to open ourselves to the revelatory power of their presence. This will require a holistic, eclectic, and interdisciplinary approach, one that draws on insights from religion, mythology, philosophy, psychology, art, and literature, among others. We must be prepared to ask the hard questions of the so hauntingly sounding ontology and epistemology, to explore the ways in which different cultural and historical contexts have made us think about the angelic realm the way we do, and to confront the often contradictory and paradoxical nature of angelic encounters. But above all, we must approach this voyage with a sense of wonder, humility, and openness. For in the end, the study of angels is a profound spiritual experience, one that invites us to confront the deepest mysteries of the cosmos and of our own souls, as above, so below. And as the poet Rainer Maria Rilke reminds us in his Duino elegies, every angel is terrifying, and yet alas I invoke you, almost deadly birds of the soul, knowing about you. You, the seekers and co-creators of meaning, are the lifeblood of Irevelato. You know this is not a passive experience. You know this is a participatory and intimate rendezvous with wisdom. You will encounter profound and provocative ideas and perspectives woven throughout these videos. You are an integral part of the channel's unfolding story. It can't be otherwise. Your comments, reflections, and insights are the alchemical spark that ignites transformative discussions and illuminates new pathways of knowledge and secrets. by sharing your own experiences, questioning assumptions, biases, concerns, ideas, and offering novel interpretations, a new lens, a fresh look, an honest feel. You breathe life into the timeless tales and philosophical frameworks explored here. But your role is much more valuable. You have the power to shape the trajectory of Irevelato. Your interactions are signals that ripple out into the digital constellation, drawing others that did not know they need this oasis of enlightenment. Each time you engage with a video, you set in motion a chain reaction of algorithmic alchemy, ensuring that these vital ideas find their way to hungry minds and receptive spirits. Your support is the wind beneath the wings of this channel, propelling it to new heights of reach and impact. So we invite you, dear viewers, to step into your rightful role as co-creators of this evolving map of meaning. Descend into the well of wisdom offered here, but don't linger on the sidelines. Make your voice heard, your presence felt, your influence undeniable. You are more valuable than you think. Dialectic is a sacred act of intellectual and spiritual excellence. Together, we can marshal the forces of social media alchemy to spread the luminous gospel of psychological and philosophical liberation to all who seek it. In this great work of collective enlightenment, each of you is an indispensable catalyst, a vital link in the golden chain of awakening that Irevelato seeks to forge, the bearers of light, truth, goodness, beauty, freedom, and peace. So join us. As always, I am Irevelato. Engage with abandon, evolve with audacity, enlighten with unwavering resolve. The journey awaits and your destiny is calling. Will you answer the summons of Irevelato and take your rightful place as a sovereign co-creator of the new world order? The choice is yours, but the rewards are beyond measure. Weigh in, geek out, dig deep. The revolution will not be televised. It will be actualized, one view at a time, 1 month at a time, 1 year at a time, 10 years at a time. And ultimately our mission will be fulfilled, at least if our grandchildren will have a world that is a little bit better than our own. If you believe in God, we have a material illusion to protect at all cost, because it includes all that you love, all that they love, all they will love. If you don't believe in God, I hope you already started working on our renaissance. Either way, we are all brothers and sisters. We are life. Welcome to the alchemical digital enlightenment. Let's set this corner of cyberspace ablaze with the fire of liberating gnosis. Together. In the angelic law, the concept of celestial hierarchies looms large. These hierarchies, their ranking of spiritual beings, are complemented by a profound metaphysical ordering of the cosmos. As the great Christian mystic Pseudo-Dionysius, the Areopagite, writes in his treatise, The Celestial Hierarchy. The goal of hierarchy is to enable beings to be as like as possible to God and to be at one with Him. A hierarchy has God as its leader of all understanding and action. It is forever looking directly at the comeliness of God. A hierarchy bears in itself the mark of God. Hierarchy causes its members to be images of God in all respects, to be clear and spotless mirrors reflecting the glow of primordial light, and indeed of God Himself. It ensures that when its members have received this full and divine splendor, they can then pass on this light generously, and in accordance with God's will, to beings further down the scale. For Pseudo-Dionysius, the angelic orders are a reflection of the divine nature. The tier of angels represents a specific aspect or emanation of God's infinite being, a refraction of the divine light through the prism of creation. This concept of emanation hints at the significance of angelic hierarchies. In the Neoplatonic philosophical tradition that deeply influenced early Christian thought, all of reality is seen as an overflowing or unfolding of the divine unity. As the philosopher Plotinus writes in his Enneads, this, we may say, is the first act of generation, the one, perfect because it seeks nothing, has nothing, and needs nothing, overflows, as it were, and its superabundance makes something other than itself. The angelic hierarchies, then, can be understood as the successive stages or gradations of this divine overflow. Each angelic order represents a specific level of being, a unique configuration of divine energies and attributes. Together they form a vast chain of being that stretches from the ineffable oneness of God down to the multiplicity and materiality of the physical world. Unity in diversity, as Greeks would say, but the hierarchies are deeply dynamic and participatory. Each angel, in its own unique way, plays a vital role in the great performance of creation, preservation and transformation unfolding before our curious eyes. As the 20th century mystic and philosopher Rudolf Steiner observes, the angels are the inhabitants of the astral world, the world of soul. They live in the realm of thought. Their lowest member is the astral body, and their consciousness is an astral consciousness, a soul consciousness. For Steiner, the angels are not distant or aloof beings, but rather intimate actors influencing the human consciousness. They are the guardians and guides of our inner world, the nurturers of our spiritual development. Each angelic order corresponds to a specific aspect of the human psyche, a particular stage in the soul's journey of awakening. This idea of the angelic hierarchies as reflections of human psychological development is a key theme in the work of Carl Jung. For Jung, the angels are, of course, powerful archetypes that represent the different stages and facets of the individuation process. As he writes in his essay, A Psychological Approach to the Dogma of the Trinity, the angel symbolizes a high degree of differentiation of consciousness or enlightenment, which goes hand in hand with an extension of the personality beyond the ordinary boundaries of the ego. In this sense, the study of angelic hierarchies is more than a forgotten esoteric or academic pursuit, but a profound exploration of the depths of the human psyche as we know it and as it influences us today. By contemplating the different orders of angels and their unique qualities and functions, we gain insight into our own inner nature and the different facets of our being. Beyond individual psychology, hierarchies are the blueprint for the structure of reality. In the Kabbalistic tradition of Jewish mysticism, the angelic orders are mapped onto the tree of life, a diagram that represents the unfolding of divine energy into the manifest world. As the Kabbalah scholar Gershom Scholem explains, the Kabbalists conceived of the process of creation as a process of emanation, whereby the divine light, which, in its first manifestation, is concealed within itself, unfolds from stage to stage and descends from the highest to the lowest levels. Each of the 10 sephirot or emanations on the tree of life corresponds to a specific angelic order, from the loftiest and most abstract levels of divine being down to the most concrete and material. By studying the complex interrelationships between these different levels, the Kabbalist seeks to understand the inner workings of the cosmos and to align themselves with the divine flow. This idea of aligning oneself with the cosmic order through the contemplation of angelic hierarchies is a recurring theme in many spiritual traditions. In the Islamic tradition, for example, the practice of remembering and invoking the names of God is seen as a way of attuning oneself to the divine qualities and energies that permeate the universe. As the Sufi mystic Ibn Arabi writes, "The names are the intermediaries between the named and the name-giver, and it is by them that the name-giver is connected to the named. They are the means by which the name-giver may be contemplated, as well as the lotzi of manifestation for the divine attributes and qualities. By invoking the names of God, the Sufi seeks to awaken within themselves the corresponding divine qualities and to align themselves with the angelic beings that embody these qualities. This practice is seen as a way of participating in the ongoing process of creation and manifestation, of becoming a conscious collaborator in the great work. The angelic hierarchies also have profound implications for how we understand the nature of human society and the role of spiritual authority. In many religious traditions, the idea of a celestial hierarchy has been used to justify earthly systems of power and domination, with rulers and priests claiming to be the earthly representatives of divine authority. This idea of the divine right of kings has been used throughout history to legitimize oppressive and exploitative social structures. But as the liberation theologian Leonardo Boff argues, this is a fundamental misunderstanding of the true nature of spiritual authority. The hierarchy that Jesus proposed is one of service, not of power. In this perspective, authority is authenticated in the ability to help the growth of persons and communities. All of us, at different times, can be servant authorities, empowering one another, building one another up into maturity. For Boff, the true meaning of the angelic hierarchies is not a justification for earthly systems of domination. Oh no, it is a call to radical service and empowerment. Each of us, in our own unique way, is called to embody the divine qualities and energies that the angels represent. We are all called to be servants and co-creators, working together to bring forth a world of justice, compassion, and love. This is the deeper invitation of the angelic hierarchies, to embody them in the world. So let's keep this invitation in mind. Let's ask ourselves how we can more fully align ourselves with the divine energies and archetypes they represent. Let's strive to become the earthly embodiment of the celestial hierarchies, bringing the light and love of the divine into the world in all that we do. Few figures shine as brightly as Metatron, known as the Prince of the Presence, the Angel of the Covenant, and the King of Angels. Metatron occupies a unique and exalted position in the celestial hierarchy. According to Jewish mystical tradition, Metatron is the highest of the angels, second only to God himself. He is the celestial scribe, the recorder of the divine will and the keeper of the heavenly archives. As the Talmud relates, the Holy One, blessed be he, said to Metatron, "Write," and he wrote. Metatron might look like a celestial secretary, but he is also a powerful mediator and intercessor, a bridge between the divine and the human. In the Zohar, the central text of Kabbalistic mysticism, Metatron is described as the middle pillar, the axis mundi that connects heaven and earth. The middle pillar is Metatron, the Prince of the Presence. He is the tree in which all the Sephiroth are unified, and he channels the divine flow through all the worlds. This idea of Metatron as the unifying principle of the cosmos is a recurring theme in Jewish mysticism. He is seen as the embodiment of the divine attributes, the synthesis of all the different aspects and energies of God. As the Kabbalist Moses Cordovero writes, all the divine emanations are included and unified in Metatron. He includes Hesed, love, Gevura, power, and Tiferet, beauty, and he unites them. However, Metatron is a fascinating personal and relatable figure, one who has a special relationship with humanity. According to some traditions, Metatron was originally a human being, the biblical figure of Enoch, who was transformed into an angel. As the book of Genesis relates, Enoch walked with God, then he was no more, because God took him. For the mystics, this mysterious passage hints at Enoch's transformation into Metatron. Through his righteousness and devotion, Enoch transcended his human limitations and became a divine being. As the 3rd century Rabbi Joshua ben Levi explains, the Holy One, blessed be he, said to Metatron, "I made you a prince over all the princes, and a lord over all the angels." This idea of Metatron as a transformed human being has profound implications for our understanding of the relationship between humanity and divinity. It suggests that we all have the potential to transcend our limitations and to attain a state of divine consciousness. As the Hasidic master, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov teaches, each of us can become a Metatron in our own way. We can all rise above our human nature and connect with the divine. But this process of transformation is not easy. It requires a difficult but rewarding inner journey, a confrontation with our deepest fears and limitations. Metatron represents the pinnacle of this journey, the complete realization of our divine potential. But he also represents the challenges and obstacles we must overcome along the way. In this sense, Metatron is a powerful archetype of the human journey towards wholeness and enlightenment. By contemplating his qualities and attributes, we gain insight into our own inner nature and the different stages of our spiritual development. At the same time, Metatron also represents the ultimate goal of this development, the complete integration of the human and the divine. As the Kabbalist Isaac Luria teaches, in the future, the righteous will all be transformed into Metatrons, completely united with the divine. This idea of the ultimate unity of the human and the divine is a central theme in many mystical traditions. It suggests that our deepest essence is not separate from God, but is in fact a reflection or emanation of the divine nature. By realizing this unity within ourselves, we not only transform our own consciousness, but we also participate in the transformation of the world. This is the deeper invitation of Metatron, to recognize our own divine nature and to work towards its realization in the world. As we explore the rich symbolism and meaning of this exalted angelic figure, let us keep this invitation in mind. Let us ask ourselves how we can more fully embody the qualities of wisdom, compassion, and unity that Metatron represents. Let us strive to become the earthly embodiment of the divine scribe, recording the will of heaven in all that we do. In this way, the study of Metatron becomes a transformative practice, a way of aligning ourselves with the deepest truths of our being and the cosmos. The promise is simple. We will awaken to our own divine potential and our role in the great work of cosmic transformation. So let's approach this exploration with reverence and humility, but also with courage and determination. Let's be willing to confront our own limitations and shadows, to undergo the profound inner alchemy that Metatron represents. And let's emerge from this journey not just wiser, but transformed, shining with the radiance of our own divine nature and ready to take our place as co-creators of a new heaven and a new earth. Because, I don't know if you heard, but heaven and hell are actually places on earth. So it needs your attention. Let us now encounter the most enigmatic and numinous of angelic figures, Raziel, the keeper of secrets. In the hallowed halls of celestial lore, Raziel stands as a towering figure of mystery and reverence, a repository of the most profound and esoteric knowledge the universe has to offer. The very name Raziel hints at the depths of this angel's significance. Derived from the Hebrew words Raz, mystery, and El, God, Raziel is often translated as secret of God, or God is my secret. This appellation points to Raziel's role as the divine custodian of the most closely guarded truths of creation, truths that are said to be too powerful and transformative for ordinary human minds to comprehend. According to legend, Raziel is the author of a mystical grimoire known as the Book of Raziel, or Sefer Raziel Hamelach. This occult tome is said to contain the sum total of celestial wisdom, including the divine blueprints for the creation of the cosmos itself. As the 13th century Kabbalistic text Sefer HaZohar relates, in the Book of Raziel, all celestial and earthly knowledge is stored, until the Holy One, blessed be He, took it and gave it to Adam, his handiwork, whom he had created in his likeness and his image. This tantalizing passage articulates the immense power and significance of Raziel's wisdom. The notion that the secrets of creation were entrusted to Adam through Raziel's intermediary role suggests a profound link between human consciousness and divinity. It implies that, at our core, we each carry a spark of that celestial fire, a hidden potential for touching the ultimate nature of reality. But the path to such knowledge is fraught with peril. The Talmudic sage Rabbi Yochanan warns that descending too deeply into the mysteries of creation can lead to madness and destruction. Four entered the paradise, the realm of divine secrets: Ben Azai, Ben Zoma, Acher, and Rabbi Akiva. Ben Azai looked and died. Ben Zoma looked and went mad. Acher cut down the plantings. Rabbi Akiva entered in peace and departed in peace. This cryptic passage hints at the transformative and potentially destabilizing power of the knowledge Raziel represents. To gaze directly into the heart of the divine mystery is to risk being consumed by its radiance, to be shattered by the sheer immensity of its revelation. Only those with the most steadfast and purified consciousness, like Rabbi Akiva, can hope to withstand the psychic shock of such an encounter. And yet, for all its dangers, the lure of Raziel's wisdom remains irresistible. Throughout history, mystics and seekers have sought to unlock the secrets of the Book of Raziel, to glean even a fragment of its ineffable truths, From the medieval magicians who employed its incantations to summon spirits and perform wonders, to the modern occultists who pore over its cryptic symbols in search of enlightenment, Raziel's legacy continues to captivate and inspire. But perhaps the true significance of Raziel lies not in the literal contents of his book, but in the archetypal process it represents. The quest for divine knowledge, the yearning to penetrate the veil of mystery and touch the face of the Absolute, this is a universal human impulse, as old as consciousness itself. In this sense, Raziel can be seen as a powerful symbol of the transformative potential of gnosis, the direct experiential knowledge of the divine. To seek Raziel's wisdom is to look within, to perform the psychospiritual alchemy that has the power to transmute the leaden dross of ignorance into the gleaming gold of illumination. But such a journey requires a willingness to confront the shadows and illusions of the ego, to surrender to a mystery that defies all rational understanding. It demands a radical openness of mind and heart, a readiness to be transformed in the crucible of divine revelation. And yet, for those who are called to this path, the rewards are beyond measure. To catch even a glimpse of Raziel's secret is to be forever changed, to awaken to a reality that transcends the narrow confines of the self. It is to become a conduit for the influx of celestial wisdom into the world. Then let's not be content with mere intellectual speculation or occult fantasies. Let's instead take up the gauntlet of genuine spiritual transformation, daring to plunge into the depths of the mystery he represents, and reveal its secrets. For in the end, the true book of Raziel is not to be found in any earthly library or arcane grimoire. It is etched in our souls, waiting to be deciphered by those with the courage and insight to read its luminous pages. May we each in our own way take up this sacred task, ever striving to unravel the secret of secrets and to embody its truth in all that we do. For in this way we become the living scriptures of Raziel's wisdom, beacons of divine light in a world all too often shrouded in darkness. Let the mysteries be unveiled, and let the transformation begin. Archangels are figures of power and authority, holding titles that evoke a sense of wonder and grandeur. These mighty beings are deeply involved in the unfolding of our eternal drama, offering divine energy, guidance, and protection. The very term archangel sounds like exalted status and function. Derived from the Greek archangelos, meaning chief messenger, this appellation points to their role as the foremost emissaries of the divine will. They are the heavenly heralds, the bearers of cosmic decrees, and the executors of sacred mandates. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, there are typically 7 archangels recognized, each with their own unique attributes and spheres of influence. As the scholar Gustav Davidson notes in his comprehensive work, A Dictionary of Angels, the 7 are said to be the eyes of the Lord which go to and fro throughout the whole earth, Zechariah 4:10. Standing before the throne of God, they act as angelic satraps, ruling over the empires of the world. This notion of the archangels as cosmic governors, overseeing the affairs of nations and shaping the course of history, is a recurring theme in mystical literature. Each archangel is associated with a particular planet, astrological sign, or celestial body, reflecting their role as mediators between the heavenly and earthly realms. But the archangels are more than just abstract cosmic forces. They are also deeply personal beings, each with their own distinct characteristics and modes of interaction with humanity. As the 13th century Kabbalistic text, Sefer HaZohar describes, each one of these archangels has a specific mission and is set over a particular nation, yet all are in the service of their Lord. All are part of the divine plan for the universe. This idea of the archangels as personalized guides and protectors has captured the human imagination for millennia. From Michael, the mighty warrior and defender of the faithful, to Raphael, the gentle healer and guardian of travelers. These celestial beings have been invoked in countless prayers, rituals, and devotional practices. Yet the role of the archangels is not limited to individual guidance and protection. They are also powerful agents of transformation, both on a personal and collective level. As the Sufi mystic Ibn Arabi writes in his visionary work, The Meccan Revelations, The archangels are the intermediaries of spiritual realization. They are the ones who transform the dense darkness of ignorance into the subtle light of knowledge in the hearts of human beings. For Ibn Arabi, the archangels are not just external forces acting upon humanity, but are also internal archetypes, representing different facets of the human psyche and the stages of spiritual development. By attuning ourselves to their energies and integrating their qualities, we can undergo a profound alchemical transformation, transmuting the lead of our lower nature into the gold of divine realization. This idea of the archangels as archetypal forces is echoed in the work of Carl Jung, who saw them as powerful symbols of the individuation process. As Jung writes in his essay On the Nature of the Psyche, the archangels represent the original fourfoldness of the self-regulating psychic system. They symbolize the four functions of consciousness: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. For Jung, the archangels are internal guides, leading us through the labyrinth of our own psyche towards wholeness and integration. By engaging with their symbolism and energy, we can absorb the archetypal wisdom that lies within us. The path of archangelic transformation is not an easy one. It requires a willingness to face our shadows, to fight the forces of darkness and chaos that threaten to overwhelm us. As the Kabbalistic tradition teaches, each archangel has a corresponding demonic counterpart, a shadow twin that represents the distorted and imbalanced aspects of their energy. To truly embody the qualities of the archangels, then, we must be willing to face and integrate these shadow aspects, to bring light to the hidden recesses of our being. This is the true meaning of the battle in heaven that is so often depicted in religious iconography. Not a literal cosmic war, but an internal struggle for wholeness and redemption. It is in this context that we can understand the enduring fascination with figures like Lucifer, the fallen archangel who has become a symbol of rebellion, pride, and the seductive allure of power. As the literary critic Harold Bloom observes in his book Omens of Millennium, Lucifer is the emblem of our age, the age of the self-conscious and self-glorifying rebel. A seductive image of the self as outcast, an emblem of the defiant and Promethean will, the refusal to submit. Yet, as Bloom also notes, the figure of Lucifer is ultimately a tragic one, a reminder of the dangers of unchecked pride and the need for humility and surrender in the face of the divine mystery. To truly walk the path of the archangels, we must be willing to let go of our own ego-driven agendas and align ourselves with the higher will of the cosmos. This is the deeper invitation of the archangels, to become co-creators with the divine, to participate consciously in the unfolding evolution of consciousness. As the philosopher Pierre Teilhard de Chardin writes in his visionary work, The Phenomenon of Man, the angels are the agents of material and spiritual progress. These mighty beings are at work everywhere, at the service of the creative word. And all their interventions lead through increasing complexity and interiorization to the ultimate goal of evolution, the omega point. For Teilhard, the archangels are the driving forces behind the cosmic process of convergence and unification, guiding the universe towards its ultimate destiny of divine consummation. And you play a part too. So let's attune ourselves to the presence of the archangels, these mighty emissaries of the divine will. Let us invoke their guidance and protection as lively partners in the evolution of the cosmos. And let's have the courage to face our anything, knowing that it is through this alchemical process that we become the living embodiments of their celestial qualities. May we be guided by the strategic intelligence of Michael, the healing compassion of Raphael, the radiant beauty of Jophiel, the expansive wisdom of Zadkiel, the fierce courage of Camael, the inspiring creativity of Gabriel, and the profound intuition of Uriel. May we become the archangels of our own lives, the bearers of divine presence in a world aching for transformation and renewal. And may we always remember that the ultimate goal of our journey is not power or glory, but humble service and surrender to the ineffable mystery at the heart of all creation. For it is in this spirit of devotion and self-offering that we truly walk the path of the archangels, becoming vessels for the influx of divine grace and agents of cosmic transformation. The seraphim occupies a unique and exalted position. These fiery angels, whose name means the burning ones in Hebrew, are traditionally considered the highest-ranking order in the angelic host, closest to the throne of God. Their nature and symbolism have captivated the religious imagination for millennia, inspiring profound theological speculation and rich art. The most detailed biblical account of the seraphim appears in the visions of the prophet Isaiah, where they are described as six-winged beings who proclaim the holiness of God. Seraphs were in attendance above him. Each had 6 wings. With 2 they covered their faces, and with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they flew. And one called to another and said, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." In the celestial hierarchy, Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite interprets the seraphim as symbols of the highest level of spiritual illumination and the most intense love for the divine. The name seraphim clearly indicates their ceaseless and eternal revolution about divine principles, their heat and keenness, the exuberance of their intense, perpetual, tireless activity, and their elevative and energetic assimilation of those below, kindling them and firing them to their own heat, and wholly purifying them by a burning and all-consuming flame, and by the unhidden, unquenchable, changeless, radiant and enlightening power, dispelling and destroying the shadows of darkness. For Pseudo-Dionysius, the seraphim embodies the purifying and illuminating power of divine love in its most concentrated form. Their ceaseless revolution around the Godhead symbolizes the eternal dynamism of this love, while their heat and brightness represent its transformative and enlightening effects on lower orders of being. This notion of the seraphim as agents of purification and transformation through divine fire has deep roots in the Judeo-Christian mystical tradition. In the Kabbalistic schema, the seraphim are associated with the Sephira of Geburah, the divine attribute of strength, power, and judgment. They are seen as the executors of God's purifying wrath, burning away all that is impure or unworthy in the soul. Yet this purgative function is not separate from their role as bearers of divine love. As the medievalist Michael Lieb observes in his study of angelic symbolism in the works of John Milton, the seraphic fire is ultimately a fire of love, albeit a love so intense that it consumes everything that is not aligned with the divine will. The seraphim are not only ministers of God's love, but also of his wrath. They are the all-consuming flames of divine love, the very same flames that purge and purify. As agents of God's love, the seraphim burn with a fire that cauterizes even as it heals. This paradoxical nature of the seraphic fire, at once destructive and creative, purgative and illuminative, reflects a deeper truth about the transformative power of divine love. True love, in its highest and purest form, is not a soft, sentimental feeling, but a fierce, all-consuming force that demands nothing less than complete surrender and transformation. In this sense, the seraphim can be seen as embodiments of what the psychoanalyst Erich Fromm calls radical love, a love that penetrates to the core and burns out everything that is not genuine in order to liberate the authentic self. By submitting to the seraphic flames, the soul undergoes a profound alchemical shift, shedding its false identities and attachments in order to be reborn in the image of the divine. This process of purgation and rebirth is vividly depicted in the poetic visions of the Spanish mystic St. John of the Cross, who describes the soul's ascent to union with God as a passage through the dark night of suffering and self-annihilation. In his commentary on the living flame of love, St. John associates this transformative fire with the ministry of the seraphim. The seraphim are they who burn in the flames of divine love. These seraphim wounds the soul with a touch of its fiery dart, penetrating and burning it wholly by its love. The soul, transformed in the fire of love, resembles the seraphim who understand love and burn. 6. For St. John, the seraphic fire is an inner flame that is kindled in the depths of the heart as it opens itself to the influx of divine grace. The soul becomes seraphic by participating in the love that the seraphim embody, allowing itself to be wholly consumed and transformed by its purifying radiance. This notion of the seraphic soul, the human being who has been so fully transfigured by divine love that they become a living flame, is a recurrent theme in mystical literature across traditions. In the Islamic tradition, the Sufi poet Rumi speaks of the spiritual aspirant as a moth to a candle, consumed by the irresistible allure of the divine beloved. Love's fire has annihilated all thoughts but love. The moth that's given its life to the candle's flame receives a purified life from that flame. The candle brings the dead moth before God and says, "O God, this was a creature who worshipped me as an idol, but see how it never left me, despite trials and wretchedness. I am a candle for one night, but you are the sun of eternity." In this hauntingly beautiful image, the seraphic fire of divine love is depicted not as a punitive force, but as the ultimate source of life, purification and beauty. The soul that surrenders itself to this love, like the moth immolating itself in the candle's flame, undergoes a radical transformation that strips away all that is unreal and illusory, leaving only the pure gold of its essential being. Yet the path of seraphic transformation demands a willingness to relinquish all that we cling to for security and identity, to let go of our cherished illusions and attachments, to die to our false selves in order to be reborn in the truth of our divine nature. As the Trappist monk and mystic Thomas Merton writes in his Meditations on the Seraphic Life, to become a seraph, one must be ready to lose his own life, to let go of what he values as his living for the sake of a higher life, the life of love that does not flinch even from annihilation. To the seraph, the self ultimately becomes like a mask, a costume put on by love. Yet behind the mask, there is no one and nothing but love itself. This is the ultimate invitation of the Seraphim, to become so transparent to divine love that we no longer experience ourselves as separate, ego-bound entities, but as radiant vessels of a love that transcends all boundaries and distinctions. In the crucible of seraphic transformation, the soul is gradually stripped of all that is not love until it shines with the pure, uncreated light of the divine essence. Of course, this process of radical self-emptying is not a single cataclysmic event, but a gradual, lifelong journey of surrender and transmutation. It is a journey that requires immense courage, trust, and perseverance, a willingness to endure the pain of purgation in order to birth the joy of illumination. But for those who are called to walk this path, the rewards are beyond measure. To become a seraphic soul is to participate in God, to become a living flame of love that illuminates and transforms the world. It is to experience the ecstatic union of lover and beloved, the dissolving of all boundaries between self and other, finite and infinite. In the words of Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, the visionary Jesuit priest and paleontologist, who saw the entire universe evolving towards a cosmic union in Christ, the seraphic life is the ultimate destiny of all creation. Glorious Lord Christ, the divine influence secretly diffused and active in the depths of matter, and the dazzling center where all the innumerable fibers of the manifold meet, power as implacable as the world and as warm as life. You whose forehead is of the whiteness of snow, whose eyes are of fire, and whose feet are brighter than molten gold. You whose hands imprison the stars. You who are the first and the last, the living and the dead and the risen again. You who gather into your exuberant unity every beauty, every affinity, every energy, every mode of existence. It is you to whom my being cried out with a desire as vast as the universe. In truth, you are my Lord and my God. This is the vision of the Seraphim, a vision of a universe ablaze with the fire of divine love, a love that purifies, illuminates, and deifies all that it touches. May we have the courage and the grace to open ourselves to this transforming flame, to let go of all that hinders its flow, and to become the radiant, transparent vessels of its beauty and power. And may we remember, in the midst of the pain and darkness of the purgative way, that we are never alone on this journey. The Seraphim, those burning ones who stand at the threshold of the divine mystery, are with us always, guiding us, inspiring us, and fanning the flames of love in our hearts until we too become all flame, all adoration, all surrender. In this fiery presence, may we be transformed from glory to glory until we shine with the uncreated light of the One who is the source and the summit of all love. And may our lives become a ceaseless hymn of praise, a cosmic liturgy of self-offering, in which every thought, every word, every action becomes a sacrament of the seraphic fire that burns at the heart of all things. For in the end, as Olivier Clément, the orthodox theologian and spiritual writer, reminds us, the Seraphim are not remote angelic beings, but our own future state. The face of the Seraphim is the human face transfigured by the fire of love. May we embrace this transfiguration with all our being, and may we become the living flames of a love that will set the world ablaze with the glory of God. The cherubim, which became synonymous with childlike innocence and beatific grace, are in fact complex and multifaceted entities. Profound mysteries lay behind them, and they are the guardians of the divine presence. The biblical accounts of the cherubim are rich in symbolism and allusion. In the book of Genesis, cherubim are depicted as fearsome sentinels, wielding flaming swords to guard the entrance to the Garden of Eden after the expulsion of Adam and Eve. This image of the cherubim as fierce protectors of sacred space is echoed in the descriptions of the Ark of the Covenant, where two golden cherubim are positioned atop the mercy seat, their wings outstretched to form a throne for the invisible presence of God. Yet the cherubim are not merely static guardians or ornamental figures. They are also dynamic and active participants in the unfolding of the divine plan. In the visionary prophecies of Ezekiel, the cherubim are portrayed as living creatures, each with 4 faces, of a human, a lion, an ox, and an eagle, and wings covered with eyes. These strange and wondrous beings are seen bearing the throne chariot of God, moving in synchronicity with the divine will and manifesting the glory of the Lord. The cherubim has been the subject of much theological and symbolic interpretation. St. Irenaeus, the 2nd-century church father, saw in the 4 faces a representation of the fourfold gospel, with the human face symbolizing Christ's incarnation, the lion his kingship, the ox his sacrificial death, and the eagle his soaring divinity. Other Christian exegetes have interpreted the cherubim as emblems of the 4 cardinal virtues: prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance, or as symbols of the 4 elements of creation: earth, water, air, and fire. In the Jewish mystical tradition of the KABBALAH, the cherubim are associated with the Sephirah of Chokhmah, the divine attribute of wisdom. They are seen as the guardians of the supernal light of creation, the primordial Torah that existed before the manifest world. The cherubim are also linked to the concept of the higher unity, the transcendent state of consciousness in which all dualities and distinctions are reconciled in the oneness of the divine. This notion of the cherubim as mediators of divine wisdom and unity finds parallels in other spiritual traditions. In Islamic angelology, the cherubim, al-karubiyun, are described as the highest rank of angels, closest to the throne of Allah, and constantly engaged in the praise and contemplation of the divine essence. They are seen as the bearers of divine knowledge and the intercessors for human souls, reflecting the light of God's wisdom and mercy. The association of the cherubim with wisdom and enlightenment is also evident in their depiction as winged infants, or putti, in Renaissance and Baroque art. These chubby, innocent figures, often portrayed as attendants of the Virgin Mary or as playful companions of the Christ child, embody a state of pure, uncorrupted consciousness, untouched by the shadows of the world. Their childlike nature symbolizes the spiritual rebirth that is possible when one surrenders to the transformative power of divine love. Yet the path to such cherubic innocence is not an easy one. It requires a willingness to confront and transcend the limitations of the ego, to die to the false self in order to be reborn in the light of divine wisdom. As the 14th century mystic Meister Eckhart writes, "The soul must strip itself of all things, of every perception, of every form of understanding, of everything that is not God. Only then can the soul receive the divine light without veil, as it is in itself. It is a birth in the soul, in the innermost depths of the soul, in its deepest ground. There God the Father speaks his word, and there the soul becomes the same word. For Eckhart, the cherubic state is one of pure receptivity to the divine word, a state in which the soul becomes a clear mirror, reflecting the infinite wisdom and love of God. It is a state of radical simplicity and transparency, in which all the veils of illusion and separation are stripped away, and the soul stands naked before the face of the Beloved. This process of cherubic transformation is beautifully expressed in the poetry of the Sufi mystic Rumi. The miracle of Jesus is himself, not what he said or did about the future. Forget the future. I'd worship someone who could do that. On the way you may want to look back, or not, but if you can say there's nothing ahead, nothing behind, there is only this, I'm it, then you'll have to give up being a teacher or a student. You'll have to be one of those birds that fly in a nowhere sky. You'll have to disappear into that. For Rumi, the path to cherubic consciousness is a path of radical presence, of surrendering to the eternal now in which past and future dissolve into the infinite spaciousness of pure being. It is a path of disappearance, of letting go of all identities and attachments in order to merge with the divine Beloved. This cherubic state of surrender and union is not a static or passive condition, but a dynamic and creative participation in the life of God. As the 20th century mystic Thomas Merton writes, the cherubim of the Bible seem to be symbols of the highest form of contemplation, in which the intelligence, filled with the most intense love and delight, seems to submit to the direction of God and to bear witness to his word, not by speech but by an intellectual surrender to his light, in ecstatic obedience and flaming love. The intelligence of the cherubim is so completely absorbed in God that they have, in a sense, become his intelligence. Hence, the function of the cherub in art is to bear witness to the divine presence and to the glory of the Logos. For Merton, the cherubim represent the ultimate goal of the contemplative life, a state of complete absorption in the divine intellect, of ecstatic obedience to the word of God. In this state, the individual intelligence is not annihilated, but rather transfigured, becoming a pure vessel for the manifestation of divine wisdom and creativity. One, I guess, Plato, Pythagoras, Jung, and Leonardo would approve. This is the deeper invitation of the cherubim, to become living thrones for the indwelling presence of God, to bear witness to the glory of the Logos in every thought, word, and deed. It is an invitation to surrender our limited, ego-bound consciousness in order to participate in the infinite intelligence of the divine mind. Of course, such a radical transformation is not the work of a moment, but the fruit of a lifetime of spiritual practice and purification. It requires a constant dying to self, a continual offering of our broken and fragmented nature to the transfiguring fire of divine love. But for those who persevere on this path, the rewards are beyond measure. To become cherubic is to enter into the very heart of the divine mystery, to taste the ineffable sweetness of union with the Beloved. It is to become a living flame of wisdom and love, a transparent window through which the light of God shines forth to illuminate the world. In the words of Saint Dionysius the Areopagite, the cherubim are the outpouring of wisdom, the enlightening of minds, the beginning of enlightenments, and the spring of spiritual sense perceptions. They are the guardians and guides of our highest spiritual faculties, the midwives of our divine rebirth. So let us ask for the intercession and guidance of these mighty angels, these living thrones of divine presence. Let us strive to cultivate the cherubic virtues of purity, simplicity, and surrender, offering our hearts as living temples for the indwelling of the sacred. And may we trust that, as we persevere on this path of transformation, we will be gradually stripped of all that obscures the divine image within us, until we too shine with cherubic radiance, not by our own power, but by the grace of the One who makes all things new. In the end, may we take our place among the celestial hierarchy, joining our voices to the eternal song of praise that echoes through the heavens. And may our lives become a living testament to the transforming power of divine love, a ceaseless epiphany of the cherubic wisdom that flows from the heart of God. The question of language and communication holds a place of particular interest. How do these celestial beings, so far removed from the mundane realities of human existence, convey their messages and revelations? What tongues do they speak, and what scripts do they use to record the divine mysteries? The idea of a specific angelic language, distinct from human speech, has captured the imagination of mystics and scholars for centuries. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, this concept finds its most vivid expression in the enigmatic tongues of angels, mentioned by the Apostle Paul in his first epistle to the Corinthians. "If I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal." This cryptic reference has given rise to much speculation and interpretation. Some have seen it as a metaphor for glossolalia, the ecstatic utterances of the spirit-filled believer. Others have taken it more literally, as a hint of a celestial language known only to the angelic hosts and the most advanced of human adepts. In the Islamic tradition, the notion of an angelic tongue is closely linked to the concept of the language of the birds, a mystical idiom associated with the pre-Adamite world and the primordial state of humanity. The Quran itself alludes to this idea in the story of Solomon, who was granted the ability to understand the speech of birds and ants as a divine gift. For the Sufis, the language of the birds came to symbolize the inner meaning of things, the esoteric dimension of reality that lies hidden beneath the veil of appearances. To speak in this tongue was to participate in the divine discourse, to decipher the signs and symbols that God has woven into the fabric of creation. As the 12th century mystic Attar of Nishapur writes in his allegorical masterpiece, The Conference of the birds, God's mysteries, flew up and up, flinging themselves into the void, and finding nothing that might interrupt their vision of the One. And there they lost themselves completely, becoming a sign with the sign. Here the birds serve as the archetypes of angelic consciousness, the embodiment of that inner dimension of reality that transcends the boundaries of the self and merges with the divine unity. Through their symbolic flight, they are on the same journey of annihilation and subsistence, fana and baka, that lies at the heart of the Sufi path. But the angelic language is not limited to metaphorical or allegorical interpretations. In the Western esoteric tradition, there are numerous examples of what claim to be actual angelic scripts and alphabets, each with its own distinctive characters and meanings. Perhaps the most famous of these is the celestial alphabet, also known as the alphabet of the Magi or the Enochian script. This complex system of glyphs and sigils was first recorded in the journals of the Elizabethan magus John Dee and his scryer Edward Kelly, who claimed to have received it through a series of angelic communications between 1582 and 1589. According to Dee and Kelly, the celestial alphabet was the original language spoken by Adam in paradise, the tongue in which God conferred the true names of all creatures. They believed that this language held the key to unlocking the secrets of creation and to achieving a state of perfect knowledge and power. While the authenticity of the Enochian system has been the subject of much debate and controversy, it has continued to exert a powerful influence on the Western magical tradition. Its intricate script and otherworldly phonology have inspired generations of occultists and visionaries, from the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn to Aleister Crowley's Thelemic mysticism. But the celestial alphabet is far from the only example of an alleged angelic script. The Renaissance sage Cornelius Agrippa, in his 3 books of occult philosophy, describes a complex hierarchy of magical alphabets, each corresponding to a different level of reality and consciousness. Among these is the alphabet of the angels, a series of abstract glyphs and sigils that Agrippa claims to have derived from an ancient Hebrew mystical text. Each character in this alphabet is associated with a specific angelic name and power, forming a kind of celestial code that can be used to invoke and command the heavenly hosts. Similar systems can be found in the Kabbalistic tradition, where the shapes and combinations of the Hebrew letters are seen as potent symbols of divine energy and meaning. The medieval Kabbalist Abraham Abulafia developed a complex method of letter permutation and meditation known as Hokmat Hatzerof, or the science of combination, which he believed could unlock the hidden names of God and the angels. For Abulafia and his followers, the Hebrew alphabet was more than just a human invention for communication and recording knowledge. It was a cosmic language, a divine code inscribed into the very structure of reality. By learning to decipher and manipulate this code, the Kabbalist could tap into the creative power of the divine word and participate directly in the unfolding of creation. This idea finds its most vivid expression in the Sefer Yetzirah, or Book of Formation, one of the earliest and most influential texts of Jewish mysticism. In this enigmatic work, the letters of the Hebrew alphabet are described as the building blocks of the universe, the 32 wondrous paths of wisdom through which God shaped the cosmos. He created his universe with 3 books, Sepharim, with text, Sefer, with number, Sephar, and with communication, Sippur. He created reality from the void and made the nameless into being. He carved great pillars from intangible air. Here, the act of divine speech is seen as synonymous with the act of creation itself. The letters are not mere symbols, but living entities, pulsing with the energy of formation and transformation. They are the elemental forces through which the infinite potential of the divine is channeled into the finite forms of the manifest world. In this sense, the angelic alphabets can be understood as more than just esoteric curiosities or magical tools. They are symbolic expressions of a profound metaphysical truth, the idea that language, in its deepest essence, is a participatory and creative act, a way of shaping and navigating reality through the power of meaning and intention. This is perhaps why the idea of angelic tongues has continued to hold such a powerful sway over the human imagination. In a world that often feels fragmented and disenchanted, where language has been reduced to a mere instrument of communication and control, the notion of a divine speech, a celestial syntax that creates reality, offers a tantalizing glimpse of a more integrated and awakened way of being. It invites us to reconsider our relationship to language and meaning, to see in the very act of naming an expression a sacred and transformative power. It challenges us to cultivate a more poetic and symbolic sensibility, a way of engaging with the world that is attuned to the hidden dimensions of the real and the possible. Of course, the quest for an angelic language is not without its dangers and delusions. History is littered with examples of those who have claimed to possess secret knowledge and celestial tongues, only to lapse into incoherence, deception, or self-aggrandizement. The line between visionary insight and madness can be a thin and treacherous one. But perhaps the true significance of the angelic alphabets is not in their literal reality, but in the aspirations and imaginings they represent. The prophecies, the fantasies, the myths, the visions, the ladders, the ascents. They are symbolic markers of the human longing for a more direct and unmediated encounter with the mystery of existence, for a language that can bridge the gap between the mundane and the numinous, the finite and the infinite. In this sense, the search for an angelic tongue is ultimately a search for our own deepest and most authentic voice, the voice of the soul that speaks in the language of symbol and archetype, of myth and dream and vision. It is a call to awaken to the poetry of existence, to the living word that vibrates at the heart of all things. And so, as we ponder the enigma of angelic language, let us not get lost in the labyrinth of occult correspondences and esoteric codes. Let us instead use these symbols as keys to unlock the hidden dimensions of our own being, to discover within ourselves the echoes of that celestial speech that is our true birthright and heritage. For in the end, perhaps the real secret of the angelic tongues is this, that the language of the divine is not something external to us, something to be deciphered and mastered from without, but a living presence that dwells within the depths of our consciousness, waiting to be awakened and expressed. May we have the courage and the clarity to heed its call, to become the vessels and the voices of that angelic word that forever sings the world into being. Let's learn to speak in the tongues of fire and light, of wind and water and starry night, until our every utterance becomes a hymn of praise to the ineffable mystery that moves through all things. And may we remember always that the true language of the angels is the language of the heart, that wordless and luminous speech that needs no script or cipher to be understood, but only the pure and passionate attentiveness of an open soul. For it is in this language that the divine forever speaks to us, calling us back to our true nature and our infinite home. Numbers occupy a place of singular significance in the angelic calculus of creation. Far from mere quantitative abstractions, numbers are seen as potent carriers of meaning, as sacred signifiers that encode the very structure of reality. They are, in a sense, the language of creation itself, the divine syntax through which the ineffable mysteries of the cosmos find expression. This notion of numbers as vessels of metaphysical truth is deeply rooted in the Pythagorean tradition, which held that all things are number. For the Pythagoreans, the study of mathematics was a spiritual discipline, a means of attuning the soul to the hidden harmonies of the universe. Numbers were seen as the archetypal patterns that underlie the manifest world, the immutable principles that govern the dance of atoms and the wheeling of galaxies. In the Kabbalistic tradition, this Pythagorean wisdom is given a distinctly theological inflection. The Sephirot, the 10 emanations of divine energy that structure the tree of life, are each associated with a specific number, from the ineffable unity of Keter, 1, to the radiant multiplicity of Malchut, 10. These numbers are not arbitrary labels, but profound symbols that encapsulate the essential qualities and dynamics of each Sephira. As the Sefer Yetzirah, one of the foundational texts of Kabbalah, declares, 10 Sephirot of nothingness, 10 and not 9, 10 and not 11. Understand with wisdom and be wise with understanding. Examine with them and probe from them. Make each thing stand on its essence, and make the Creator sit on his base. This enigmatic passage suggests that the Sephirot and the numbers that represent them are not mere human constructs, but fundamental ontological realities, the very building blocks of both the divine and the created realms. To contemplate these numbers, to plumb their depths and trace their interrelations, is to gain insight into the mind of God, to participate in the ongoing process of creation. But the significance of numbers in angelic symbolism is not limited to the rarefied heights of Kabbalah. Throughout the Judeo-Christian tradition, certain numbers recur with striking frequency and consistency, each carrying its own cluster of meanings and associations. Perhaps the most prominent of these is the number 7, which is often seen as a symbol of completeness, perfection, and divine order. In the book of Revelation, we encounter 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 bowls, each marking a key stage in the unfolding of the apocalyptic drama. Similarly, in Islamic tradition, there are 7 heavens, each presided over by a specific angel and corresponding to a particular spiritual state. This sevenfold structure is often linked to the 7 classical planets, which were seen as powerful celestial beings, each with its own angelic ruler and sphere of influence. In this cosmological schema, the number 7 becomes a kind of cosmic key, a mystic cipher that unlocks the hidden correspondences between the celestial and terrestrial realms. But the significance of the number 7 is also deeply psychological. In the work of Carl Jung, the number 7 is associated with the process of individuation, the integration of the conscious and unconscious aspects of the psyche into a unified whole. As Jung writes in his essay on the psychology of the unconscious, the number 7 is a holy number in many religions. It has a special meaning in the process of individuation as a symbol of the reconciliation of opposites, the union of the Trinity and the Quaternity. The 7 is the number of the young hero who conquers the old enemy, the dragon, and frees the anima figure who has been imprisoned by him. For Jung, the number 7 represents the culmination of the hero's journey, the alchemical marriage of the masculine and feminine principles that gives birth to the fully realized self. It is a powerful symbol of wholeness and transformation, of the hard-won integration of the fragmented psyche. This theme of unity and multiplicity is also central to the significance of the number 3 in angelic symbolism. In the Christian tradition, the number 3 is of course associated with the doctrine of the Trinity, the mystery of the threefold nature of God as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But this Trinitarian motif is not unique to Christianity. It finds parallels in other spiritual systems as well. In Hinduism, for example, the divine is often conceived as a triune deity, with Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva representing the cosmic functions of creation, preservation, and destruction, respectively. Similarly, in the Neoplatonic tradition that so deeply influenced early Christian thought, the number 3 is associated with the 3 primary hypostases of the divine: the One, intellect, and soul. In each of these triadic schemas, the number 3 represents a kind of dialectical unfolding, a dynamic process of differentiation and reintegration that mirrors the very structure of reality itself. It suggests that the ultimate nature of the divine is not a static unity, but a living, breathing relationship, an eternal dance of love and creativity. This Trinitarian motif also finds expression in the angelic hierarchies, with the Seraphim, Cherubim, and Thrones forming the highest triad, the one closest to the divine essence. As Pseudo-Dionysius writes in his celestial hierarchy, the first hierarchy, stationed immediately around God and encircling him directly in the blessed and most high knowledge of him, is purified, illuminated, and perfected by the divine rays that pour forth from him. The Seraphim, Cherubim, and Thrones are named and praised above the other heavenly beings in our inspired scriptural tradition. Here the number 3 becomes a symbol of the most exalted form of angelic consciousness, the direct participation in the divine life that is the highest goal of all spiritual striving. It represents the perfection of knowledge, love, and service, the complete alignment of the angelic will with the divine purpose. But perhaps the most mysterious and potent of all angelic numbers is the number 1, the symbol of absolute unity and indivisibility. In the Kabbalistic tradition, the number 1 is associated with the Sephira of Keter, the supreme crown of divine emanation that stands above and beyond all duality and distinction. As the 13th century Kabbalist Isaac the Blind writes in his commentary on the Sefer Yetzirah, the 1 is the beginning of all numbers, and there is no number before it. It is the secret of the unity of the Holy One, blessed be He, and His name is One. This notion of the divine oneness, the absolute unity that transcends all multiplicity and division, is the ultimate mystery at the heart of all mystical and metaphysical speculation. It suggests that beneath the kaleidoscopic diversity of the manifest world, beneath even the celestial hierarchies and angelic choirs, there is a single, undivided essence, a pure and unbounded consciousness that is the source and ground of all being. To contemplate this supreme unity, to seek to align oneself with its ineffable simplicity, is the highest aspiration of the spiritual life. It is to transcend the realm of number altogether, to enter into the silent abyss of the divine darkness, where all distinctions and definitions dissolve into the pure, unconditioned awareness of the One. The monad, the source. And yet, even in this ultimate realization of unity, the angelic numbers do not simply vanish or lose their meaning. Rather, they are transfigured, seen in a new and luminous light as the very expressions of the divine oneness, the shimmering facets of the infinite jewel of being. In this way, the study of angelic numbers becomes a kind of contemplative mathematics, a way of using the language of quantity and relation to probe the deepest mysteries of quality and essence. It is a way of training the mind to perceive the unity in diversity and the diversity in unity that is the hallmark of divine creativity. And so as we ponder the significance of these celestial ciphers, let us not get lost in numerological speculation or occult correspondences, but rather let's use these sacred numbers as keys to unlock the hidden dimensions of our own consciousness, to discover within ourselves the same ineffable oneness that shines at the heart of the angelic realms. For in the end, the true meaning of the angelic numbers is not something that can be grasped through the intellect alone, but only through the direct intuition of the awakened heart. It is a meaning that must be lived and embodied, a truth that must be realized in the depths of our own being. And in that realization, we may find that we ourselves are the living mathematics of the divine, the incarnate equations of love and creativity that the angels forever sing in the depths of the heavens. We may discover that our existence is a sacred number, a holy cipher that encodes the infinite complexities and simplicities of the divine mystery. Approach these angelic numbers with reverence and wonder, but also with courage and boldness. Dare to enter into the great equation of being, to offer ourselves as variables in the cosmic calculus of creation. And let us trust that as we do so, we will be transformed and illuminated, our minds and hearts expanded to embrace the full splendor of divine mathematics. In the words of the poet Dante, writing of his angelic vision in the Paradiso, "O grace abounding, through which I presumed to set my eyes on the eternal light, so long that I spent all my sight on it. In its profundity I saw, ingathered, and bound by love into one single volume, what in the universe seems separate, scattered." May we too have the grace and the audacity to gaze into the eternal light, to see the scattered strands of number and meaning gathered up and bound by love into the one infinite book of life. And may we find in that beatific vision the ultimate resolution of all our seeking and striving, the final answer to the great question of our existence. Few threads tug as insistently at the soul as the encounters with angelic presences that punctuate the spiritual journeys of mystics, visionaries, and ordinary seekers alike. These meetings with the denizens of the celestial realms are no mere metaphysical curiosities or philosophical abstractions, but visceral, transformative events that leave an indelible mark on the psyche and often radically reshape the course of an individual's life. An encounter with an angel is, of course, fraught with paradox and ambiguity. For how can the finite and limited human consciousness apprehend, let alone communicate with, a being of such vastly superior intelligence, power, and subtlety? How can the temporal and material mind grasp the eternal and immaterial essence of these flames of fire, these winds of spirit that blow through the corridors of the cosmos? And yet, despite the seeming impossibility of such encounters, the annals of spiritual literature are replete with accounts of men and women who claim to have stood face to face with these luminous beings, to have heard their voices, felt their touch, and been forever changed by the experience. From the biblical patriarchs and prophets, to the desert fathers and medieval mystics, from the Sufi poets and Hindu rishis, to the modern-day near-death experiences and alien abductees, the reports of angelic encounters form a continuous thread that forms the shape of human spiritual history. But what are we to make of these accounts? Are they the products of overheated imaginations, the hallucinations of disturbed minds, or the wishful projections of those desperate for some sign of a higher reality? Or do they point to something more profound and mysterious, to a dimension of experience that transcends the narrow confines of our ordinary understanding and challenges us to expand our very notions of what is possible and real? Or maybe they took too many shrooms. To begin to answer these questions, we must first recognize that the phenomenon of angelic encounters is not some peripheral or marginal aspect of spirituality, but lies at the heart of the religious impulse itself. As the great scholar of comparative religion Mircea Eliade has observed, the encounter with the sacred other, the numinous power that breaks into the profane world of everyday experience, is the foundational event that gives birth to all religious traditions. Every hierophany, even the most elementary, reveals a different mode of existence from what we might call natural or profane existence. The manifestation of the sacred ontologically founds the world. The manifestation of the sacred in space is a primordial experience, homologizable to a founding of the world. In this sense, the angelic encounter can be seen as a paradigmatic instance of the hierophany, the eruption of the sacred into the mundane that shatters the taken-for-granted reality of the ordinary world and reveals a deeper, more luminous dimension of being. It is a rupture in the fabric of the familiar that opens up a portal to the infinite, a tear in the veil of illusion that reveals the face of the divine. But the angelic encounter is not simply a passive or receptive experience, a mere witnessing of the sacred that leaves the beholder unchanged. On the contrary, it is a profoundly participatory and transformative event, one that demands a response from the deepest levels of the self and calls forth a radical reorientation of consciousness and life. This is perhaps nowhere more vividly illustrated than in the biblical story of Jacob's wrestling match with the angel at the ford of Jabbok. In this enigmatic tale, the patriarch spends a long and harrowing night, locked in combat, with a mysterious figure who is variously described as a man, an angel, and even God himself. The struggle is fierce and protracted, leaving Jacob wounded and forever marked by the experience. But it is also a deeply transformative one, in which Jacob receives a new name and identity as Israel, the one who has striven with God and with men, and has prevailed. For the mystical traditions that have pondered this story for centuries, Jacob's nocturnal encounter is a powerful symbol of the soul's struggle to break free from the limitations of its own nature and to attain a higher state of consciousness and being. As the 18th century Hasidic master Rabbi Levi Yitzhak of Berdichev explains, the wrestling of Jacob with the angel was a figure and symbol of the continual wrestling of man with the evil inclination. But another angel stands opposite us, ready to help us in our great struggle, the good inclination, and only one who has already triumphed over himself, who recognizes all of his faults and yearns to make a new beginning, finds the heavenly ladder with angels ascending and descending upon it, and hears the divine voice speaking to him out of the fire. Here the angelic encounter is not simply a moment of revelation or enlightenment, but a call to inner transformation, a summons to engage in the hard work of self-overcoming and spiritual growth. It is a challenge to confront the demons within, to wrestle with the contending forces of good and evil that battle for supremacy in the depths of the psyche. This theme of the angelic encounter as a catalyst for psycho-spiritual alchemy is a recurring one in the mystical literature of the world's religions. In the Islamic tradition, for example, the Prophet Muhammad's night journey and ascension through the seven heavens, guided by the Archangel Gabriel, is seen as a paradigm of the soul's journey towards union with the divine. As the 13th century Sufi mystic Ibn Arabi writes in his visionary magnum opus, The Meccan Revelations, the voyage of the heart in ascending through the heavens is like the voyage of the messenger of God, Muhammad, in his night journey when he was taken from the sacred mosque in Mecca to the farthest mosque in Jerusalem and ascended through the seven heavens. The Gnostic's heart is taken from the sacred mosque of his breast to the farthest mosque within it, which is the station of proximity and union. For Ibn Arabi, the angelic encounter is not simply an external event, but an inner journey of consciousness, a progressive ascent through the levels of being that culminates in the realization of the heart's essential unity with the divine. The angels that guide and assist the traveler on this journey are manifestations of the soul's own latent spiritual faculties, the powers of God that lie dormant within the microcosm of the human being. This notion of the angelic encounter as a mirroring of inner realities is echoed in the depth psychology of Carl Jung, who saw in the figure of the angel a powerful archetype of the collective unconscious, a symbol of the higher self or the individuated personality that emerges from the integration of the conscious and unconscious dimensions of the psyche. As Jung writes in his essay, The Phenomenology of the Spirit in Fairy Tales, the angel represents above all an auspicious personification of the unconscious. He takes the form of a spirit descending from heaven, a messenger of God who can also command, console, instruct, or accompany the human on his way. Angels are figures of light that emerge from the night and vanish again with the dawn. They are the bringers of revelation, the messengers of the gods, often of a numinous nature, and their effect is usually overpowering. For Jung, the angelic encounter is not simply a supernatural or paranormal event, but a psychological reality, a confrontation with the deeper layers of the self that can be both terrifying and exhilarating. It is a summons to individuation, to the realization of one's unique destiny and the fulfillment of one's highest potential. But if the angelic encounter is, in some sense, a meeting with one's own deepest nature, it is also, paradoxically, an encounter with a presence that radically transcends and challenges the boundaries of the self. For the angel is a messenger from a realm that lies beyond the grasp of the ego and its categories. It is a figure of alterity and mystery, a harbinger of the holy other that breaks into the closed circle of the known and familiar. This dimension of radical transcendence is perhaps nowhere more powerfully expressed than in the mystical visions of the prophet Ezekiel, who beholds the awesome and terrifying figure of the divine chariot or Merkabah, surrounded by the fiery wheels and many-eyed cherubim that have become the prototype of angelic iconography in the Abrahamic traditions. As Ezekiel describes the scene, I looked, and behold, a stormy wind came out of the north, a great cloud with fire flashing forth continually, and a brightness round about it, and out of the midst of it something like gleaming bronze. And out of the midst of it came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the form of men, but each had 4 faces, and each of them had 4 wings. And their whole body, their backs, their hands, their wings, and the wheels were full of eyes round about. For the Jewish mystical tradition that has pondered this vision for centuries, the Merkabah represents the highest and most esoteric level of divine reality, the innermost sanctuary of the Godhead that can only be glimpsed through the veil of angelic forms and symbols. To ascend to the Merkabah and behold the face of the divine is the ultimate goal of the mystical journey, the supreme attainment of the soul that has purified itself of all attachment to the world of appearances. But this ascent is not without its dangers and its perils, for to gaze upon the unveiled splendor of the divine is to risk annihilation, to be consumed by the fire of a love that knows no bounds or limits. As the Talmudic sage Rabbi Akiva warns his fellow mystics, "When you enter the chambers of marble, be careful not to say, 'Water, water,' for it is said, Psalms 101:7, 'He who speaks falsehood shall not be established before my eyes.' Rather say, 'This is the likeness of the throne of glory which I have seen.'" Here the angelic encounter becomes a kind of koan, or paradoxical utterance, a riddle that confounds the rational mind and points beyond itself to a reality that cannot be grasped or comprehended by the categories of ordinary thought. To mistake the angelic forms for the ultimate reality they represent is to fall into the trap of idolatry, to worship the created rather than the creator. And yet, to deny the reality of these forms altogether is to cut oneself off from the very means by which the divine makes itself known and accessible to human consciousness. This tension between the cataphatic and the apophatic, the affirmative and the negative ways of approaching the divine, is a central theme in the mystical theology of Pseudo-Dionysius, the Areopagite, the mysterious 6th century figure whose writings on the celestial hierarchies have profoundly influenced the Christian understanding of angels. For Pseudo-Dionysius, the angelic orders are not simply a cosmological scheme or a theological construct, but a symbolic language that both reveals and conceals the ineffable nature of God. As he writes in his treatise, The Celestial Hierarchy, "We must lift up the immaterial and steady our eyes on that outpouring of light which makes the divine rays so beautiful and which offers itself to the intuitions of our minds in such measure as they can receive its truth. For the minds of mortals are more moved by symbols and by that on which they can feed, and therefore the Word of God, out of indulgence, has clad himself in poetic stories, lowering himself to meet our powers of understanding. And so it is that theology has made use of poetic imagery to help our minds get a picture of formless, spiritual realities." For Pseudo-Dionysius, the angelic encounter is a kind of divine condescension, a gracious accommodation of the infinite to the finite, the eternal to the temporal. The angels are the poetic imagery, through which the formless and ineffable God makes himself known and accessible to human understanding. They are the mediators between heaven and earth, the bridges that span the abyss between the uncreated and the created. But if the angels are the means by which the divine descends to the human, they are also the means by which the human ascends to the divine. For the ultimate goal of the angelic encounter is not simply to receive a message or a revelation, but to be transformed and deified, to participate in the very life and nature of God. As Pseudo-Dionysius writes in his treatise, The Ecclesiastical Hierarchy, the purpose of hierarchy is to enable beings to be as like as possible to God and to be at one with him. A hierarchy has God as its leader of all understanding and action, it is forever looking directly at the comeliness of God. A hierarchy bears in itself the mark of God. Hierarchy causes its members to be images of God in all respects, to be clear and spotless mirrors reflecting the glow of primordial light and indeed of God himself. It ensures that when its members have received this full and divine splendor, they can then pass on this light generously and in accordance with God's will to beings further down the scale. Here, the angelic encounter becomes a kind of cosmic liturgy, a sacred drama in which the soul ascends through the ranks of the celestial hierarchies, shedding its attachment to the world of shadows and illusions, until it reaches the highest level of union and participation in the divine life. It is a process of theosis or deification, in which the human being is transformed into a living icon of the divine, a mirror that reflects the uncreated light of God. But this process of deification is not a solitary or individualistic one. For the angelic encounter is also, ultimately, an encounter with the communion of saints, the great cloud of witnesses that surrounds and supports the soul on its journey towards God. As the 20th century Orthodox theologian Vladimir Lossky writes, "The way of union with God in its final phase is an entry into the mystery of ecclesial being. It implies communion in the sacraments and the acquisition of all the Christian virtues, for it is by practicing the commandments that we gain possession of the fruits of the Holy Spirit. And when a human being has acquired grace, then his deified being enters into communion with other deified beings, with the angels and the saints." For Lossky, the angelic encounter is not simply a private or subjective experience, but a participation in the communal life of the Church, the mystical body of Christ that spans heaven and earth. It is a call to enter into the great dance of love and creativity, that is the Trinity itself, the perichoresis or mutual indwelling of the divine persons that is the source and ground of all being. And so let's not be content with mere curiosity or fascination, with the titillation of the paranormal or the frisson of the uncanny. Let's rather see in these encounters a summons to transformation, a call to enter into the great work of deification and communion that is the ultimate destiny of the human soul. Let us dare to wrestle with the angel of our own deepest nature, to confront the shadows and the demons that haunt the corridors of our psyche, and to emerge from the struggle wounded but blessed, marked by the sign of a new name and a new identity. Let us ascend with the prophet on the fiery chariot of the Merkaba, to gaze upon the face of the divine in the mirror of our own transfigured being, and to return to the world as living icons of the uncreated light. And let us join the celestial liturgy of the angels and the saints, the great cosmic dance of love and creativity that is the very life of God, and in so doing become co-creators and collaborators in the ongoing work of redemption and deification that is the ultimate meaning and purpose of all existence. For in the end, the angelic encounter is not simply a momentary glimpse of a higher reality, a brief and tantalizing taste of the beatific vision. It is an invitation to a whole new way of being and perceiving, a radical reorientation of consciousness and life that has the power to transform not only the individual soul, but the entire cosmos itself. May we have the courage and the grace to answer that invitation, to step into the fire of divine love, and to be consumed and reborn in its purifying flames. And may we emerge from that crucible as living flames ourselves, angelic presences that illumine and transfigure the world with the radiance of our deified humanity. Every creature and every moment is a sacrament of the divine presence. The angels and the saints and the whole company of heaven sing forever the praises of the One who is the source and the summit of all being. Let's join our voices to that celestial choir, and let us become, in the words of the poet Rilke, mirrors that completely absorb the radiance of the angels they are receiving and endlessly transform it into their own existence. For in that endless transformation lies the secret and the meaning of our own angelic nature, and the fulfillment of our deepest longing for union with the divine. In the grand cosmic orchestra of the angelic realms, few sections shine as brightly or resound as majestically as the celestial choirs. These vast arrays of angelic beings, each with its own unique tone and timbre, weave together in a symphony of praise and creation that echoes through the halls of heaven and reverberates in the depths of the human soul. The angelic choirs has its roots in the ancient idea of the music of the spheres, the notion that the celestial bodies, in their orderly revolutions, produce a sublime harmony that, while inaudible to mortal ears, undergirds the very structure of the cosmos, as Pythagoras, the great sage of antiquity, is said to have taught. There is geometry in the humming of the strings, there is music in the spacing of the spheres. For the medieval theologians and mystics who developed the doctrine of the celestial hierarchies, this cosmic music found its highest expression in the songs of the angelic choirs. Each order of angels, they believed, had its own distinctive sonic signature, a particular frequency or vibration that corresponded to its place in the great chain of being. Thus, in the celestial symphony, the Seraphim, with their fiery ardor, might be likened to the soaring strains of the violins, while the Cherubim, in their contemplative wisdom, evoke the deep, resonant tones of the cello. The thrones, in their steadfast nobility, might correspond to the stately rhythms of the timpani, while the dominions, virtues and powers, in their dynamic governance of the cosmos, call to mind the complex interplay of woodwinds, brass and percussion. But the music of the angelic choirs is more than just a pretty metaphor or a fanciful conceit. For those who have attuned themselves to its subtle harmonies, it represents a profound truth about the nature of reality itself. The idea that beneath the apparent chaos and cacophony of the world, there is a deeper order and meaning, a hidden melody that animates and inspires all of creation. As the 12th century mystic and composer Hildegard of Bingen writes in her visionary work Scivias, the symphony of heaven's jubilation does not cease, because God in the secret places of the soul continually sings the new song. The human soul is called to co-create with God in every moment a symphony, and to dance in the heavenly harmony. For Hildegard, the music of the spheres is a tangible reality that each soul is called to participate in and embody. By aligning ourselves with the angelic choirs, by attuning our hearts and minds to their celestial frequencies, we become co-creators in the great cosmos, instruments through which the divine melody can resound and echo in the world. This idea of the human soul as a microcosmic reflection of the angelic choirs is a recurring theme in the esoteric traditions of the West. In the Kabbalistic schema, for example, each of the 10 sephirot, or emanations of the divine, is associated with a particular angelic choir, and each human soul is said to have its root in one of these celestial spheres. Thus, the work of spiritual transformation becomes a process of discovering and activating one's own unique angelic resonance, of learning to sing one's own part in the grand symphony of creation. As the 18th century Hasidic master Rabbi Nachman of Breslov teaches, know that each and every shepherd has his own special melody, and according to the melody and the sound of the pipe, so do the sheep gather and assemble around him. So too the Holy One, blessed be He, has a shepherd's pipe, and each and every tzaddik, righteous person, is a melody unto himself. For Rabbi Nachman, the path of spiritual awakening is a process of learning to hear and respond to the unique melody that God is playing through the instrument of one's own soul. By cultivating an attentive and receptive heart, by quieting the noise and chatter of the ego, one can begin to discern the subtle strains of the divine music that are always sounding within. But this process of attunement is not just an individual or interior one. For the music of the angelic choirs is also a powerful force for healing and transformation in the world at large. As the 20th century visionary and musician Sun Ra put it, the music is playing all the time. You just have to learn how to tap into it. It's always been here and always will be here, and you're just lucky enough to be able to hear it. And that's the thing, to be ready to be used as an instrument, to be part of the vibratory plane. For Sun Ra, the celestial music is a tangible force that can be harnessed and channeled for the upliftment and liberation of humanity. By tapping into the frequencies of the angelic choirs, by becoming vessels and conduits for their transformative energies, we can become agents of cosmic harmony and healing in a world that is all too often consumed by discord and division. This idea of music as a bridge between heaven and earth, as a means of aligning the human with the divine, finds perhaps its most sublime expression in the Sufi tradition of Sama, or sacred listening. In this mystical practice, the devotee seeks to attune themselves to the subtle melodies and rhythms of the spiritual world, using music and dance as a means of dissolving the boundaries of the ego and merging with the infinite. As the great Persian poet and mystic Rumi writes in one of his most famous odes, "We have fallen into the place where everything is music. The strumming and the flute notes rise into the atmosphere, and if the whole world's harp should burn up, there will still be hidden instruments playing. This singing art is sea foam, the graceful movements come from a pearl somewhere on the ocean floor." For Rumi and the Sufi masters, the music of the spheres is a living reality that permeates every atom of existence. To awaken to this music, to dive into the ocean of its beauty and mystery, is to discover the very essence of one's own being, the pearl of divine love that lies hidden in the depths of the soul. And so, as we contemplate the mystery and majesty of the angelic choirs, let's not content ourselves with mere aesthetic appreciation or intellectual fascination. Let's rather see in their celestial harmonies an invitation and a challenge, a call to attune ourselves to the deeper music of the cosmos, to become instruments and vessels of its transformative power. Cultivate the inner silence and stillness that allows us to hear the subtle melodies of our own angelic nature, the unique part that each of us is called to play in the grand symphony of creation. Offer your voices and your lives to this great cosmic choir, knowing that, in doing so, we become co-creators and collaborators in the ongoing work of redemption and transfiguration that is the universe. In the end, the music of the angelic choirs is a living presence that sings and vibrates in the depths of each heart. It is the song of our own divinity, the melody of our truest and most authentic selves. And the more we learn to attune ourselves to its subtle harmonies, the more we become channels and instruments of its beauty and grace in the world. So let's lend our ears and our hearts to this celestial music, and let us join our voices to the eternal chorus of praise and wonder that echoes through the halls of heaven. For in that singing, we may just discover the secret of our own angelic nature and the key to unlocking the hidden harmonies of the cosmos itself. Few traditions beckon as seductively as the ancient and enigmatic art of alchemy, with its cryptic symbols, its arcane formulae, and its whispered promises of transmutation and immortality. Alchemy has for centuries cast a powerful spell over the human imagination, luring seekers and sages alike into its mysteries. At its core, alchemy is a spiritual science, a way of using the language and processes of chemistry as a metaphor and a means for the transformation of the soul. As the great Swiss psychologist Carl Jung recognized in his seminal work, Psychology and Alchemy, alchemy represents the projection of a drama both cosmic and spiritual in laboratory terms. The opus magnum, the great work, had two aims: the rescue of the human soul and the salvation of the cosmos. For Jung and the alchemical philosophers who preceded him, the opus magnum was not merely a quest for material riches or physical longevity, but a profound journey of inner transformation and enlightenment. The base metals that the alchemists sought to transmute into gold were symbolic of the leaden and imperfect parts of the psyche, the unexamined shadows, the unintegrated complexes, the unrefined desires. By subjecting these raw materials to the refining fire of introspection and spiritual discipline, the alchemist hoped to achieve the ultimate goal of the work, the creation of the philosopher's stone, the mythical substance that could heal all ills, bestow eternal life, and unlock the secrets of the universe. In this sense, alchemy can be seen as a powerful metaphor for the process of angelic transformation that we have been exploring throughout our journey. Just as the alchemist seeks to transmute the base metals of the soul into the pure gold of enlightenment, so too does the angelic seeker strive to purify and elevate their consciousness, to burn away the dross of ego and attachment in order to unveil the radiant divinity within. This alchemical process is often represented symbolically as a series of color changes that the prima materia, or first matter, undergoes as it is subjected to the heat of the furnace. In the nigredo or blackening stage, the base materials are broken down and putrefied, reduced to a uniform black matter that represents the death of the ego and the dissolution of the old self. As the 15th century alchemist George Ripley writes in his Compound of Alchemy, the first gate is called calcination, wherein the body is burned to ashes dead, depriving it of its first beginning, bringing it into a heavy sadness. But this death is not the end, but rather the beginning of a new and more glorious life. For in the albedo or whitening stage that follows, the blackened matter is washed and purified, its essential nature revealed in a dazzling whiteness that represents the dawning of spiritual insight and the birth of the luminous body. As the 16th century alchemist Edward Kelly describes in his Theatre of Terrestrial Astronomy, this white stone is the first matter of the red stone, and the red is the true aurum potabile, transparent red as ruby and fire, and more soluble than ice in hot water. Here the white stone represents the purified soul, the transformed psyche that has been stripped of its imperfections and impurities, while the red stone symbolizes the ultimate goal of the work, the achievement of union with the divine, the merging of the individual soul with the infinite light of God. This vision of spiritual alchemy, as a process of purification and illumination, finds striking parallels in the Jewish mystical tradition of Kabbalah. In the Kabbalistic schema, the divine light that emanates from the Godhead must descend through a series of filters or vessels known as the Sephirot, each of which refracts and colors the light according to its own unique quality. As the light passes through the Sephirot, it becomes progressively more dense and materialized, until it reaches the physical world in a state of maximum concealment and fragmentation. The task of the Kabbalistic alchemist, then, is to reverse this process of descent and concealment, to purify and repair the broken vessels of the Sephirot, so that the divine light can once again shine forth in its full splendor. As the 16th century Kabbalist Moses Cordovero writes in his magnum opus Pardes Rimonim, Garden of Pomegranates, the essence of the wisdom of the Kabbalah is to know how the Ein Sof, the infinite, emanated the Sephirot, and how it descends from level to level until our own world is reached. The Kabbalist ascends from below to above, from the physical to the spiritual, until he reaches the source of all, the Ein Sof. For Cordovero and the Kabbalistic alchemists who followed in his footsteps, this ascent through the Sephirot was a spiritual practice, a way of purifying the soul and uniting with the divine. By meditating on the sacred names and symbols associated with each Sephirah, by performing the prescribed rituals and invocations, the Kabbalists sought to activate the latent divinity that lay hidden within the vessels, to gather them back to their source in a great cosmic tikkun or repair. This Kabbalistic vision of alchemy as a process of gathering the scattered sparks of divinity finds a striking pattern in the writings of the Christian mystic and philosopher Teilhard de Chardin, for whom the universe itself is a vast alchemical laboratory, in which matter and spirit are gradually being refined and transmuted into higher and more luminous forms. As he writes in his visionary work, The Divine Milieu, the world is a vast thing, a body, and it is alive. Its molecules are the peoples, men are its atoms, and the energy that holds it together and drives it forward is the love that burns in so many hearts. In this cosmic vision, the angelic hierarchies take on new and profound significance. No longer merely remote or abstract entities, they become the living agents of the alchemical process, the catalysts and facilitators of the great work of universal transformation. Each angelic order represents a specific stage or quality of consciousness, a unique configuration of divine energy that helps to guide and shape the evolution of the cosmos. Thus the Seraphim, with their fiery love and ceaseless adoration, represent the highest and most refined state of spiritual consciousness, the ultimate goal of the alchemical quest. The Cherubim, with their contemplative wisdom and their guardianship of the sacred mysteries, embody the illuminated intellect, the transformed mind that has been purified of all ignorance and delusion. And the thrones, with their steadfast strength and their anchoring of the divine presence, symbolize the grounded and embodied spirituality that is the foundation of all true transformation. As we contemplate these angelic archetypes and their alchemical significance, we are invited to see ourselves as active participants in the great work of cosmic evolution. Each of us, in our own unique way, is called to become an alchemist of the soul, to take up the sacred task of purifying and transforming our own consciousness so that we may become clearer vessels for the divine light. This is no easy task either, of course. The path of alchemical transformation is often a perilous and painful one, fraught with trials and temptations, with dark nights of the soul and searing moments of purgation. As the great Christian mystic John of the Cross warns in his classic work, The Dark Night of the Soul, the soul feels itself to be perishing and melting away in the midst of these dark afflictions, as if it were being devoured by some wild beast, for it suffers a fearful agony, as if it were being swallowed alive. But if we can endure these dark passages with faith and fortitude, if we can surrender ourselves wholly to the transforming fire of divine love, we will emerge from the crucible of suffering as pure gold, radiant with the light of our own divinity. For as John of the Cross goes on to assure us, just as gold is purified in the fire, so the soul is purified and enlightened in this loving flame. With great tenderness, the dark nights have been bringing about the death of the old self and an inner illumination of understanding, love, and profound peace. This, ultimately, is the true goal of the angelic alchemy, not the acquisition of material wealth or worldly power, but the radical transformation of the self, the birth of a new and luminous identity that reflects the image and likeness of God. It is a goal that demands everything of us, our deepest fears, our most cherished attachments, our very sense of who we are. But it promises in return a treasure beyond all measure, the pearl of great price, the philosopher's stone of enlightenment and liberation. So let us take heart, fellow alchemists, and let us embrace the sacred work that lies before us. Let us invoke the guidance and protection of the angelic hierarchies, those mighty agents of transformation who stand ready to assist us on our journey. And let us trust that, as we surrender ourselves to the refining fire of divine wisdom, we will be transmuted into living flames of love and light, radiant vessels of the ineffable beauty and grace that is our true nature and our ultimate destiny. In the immortal words of the great alchemist Paracelsus, the whole secret of alchemy lies in this motto: solve et coagula, dissolve and coagulate. Dissolution is practiced to purify the body so that it may be fixed. Coagulation is the fixation which gives permanent coloring for the tincture and philosopher's stone. This is the whole work, dissolution and coagulation. Let's have the courage again and again to dissolve all that is false and impermanent within us, to let go of the leaden weights of ego and attachment that keep us bound to the realm of shadows. And may we have the faith to coagulate all that is true and eternal, to fix our hearts on the sublime reality of the divine, and to become living stones in the great temple of cosmic consciousness. For in this alchemical dance of solve et coagula, in this sacred rhythm of purification and fixation, lies the secret key to all transformation, the key that unlocks the hidden gold of our own divine nature, and that opens the doors of perception to the infinite wonders of the angelic realms. Let us seize that key with all the passion and precision of the true alchemist, and let's wield it with the wisdom and the love that are the hallmarks of the angelic way. For in so doing, we become more than mere seekers of enlightenment. We become co-creators of a new heaven and a new earth, living embodiments of the alchemical mystery that forever transmutes the leaden dross of ignorance into the pure gold of gnosis and grace. So mote it be, in the alembic of the heart, in the crucible of the cosmos, in the philosopher's stone of our own awakened and transfigured being. Amen, Amin, Om Shanti, Shalom. May the great work be accomplished, in this life and in all the worlds to come. In the rich universe of esoteric symbolism, few systems weave together the threads of angelic lore and human psychology as elegantly as the tarot. This ancient system of archetypal images serves as a bridge between the celestial and terrestrial realms, encoding profound truths about the nature of consciousness and its relationship to the divine hierarchies. The major arcana of the tarot can be understood as a symbolic representation of the soul's journey through various angelic states of consciousness. Each card represents a particular configuration of spiritual forces, a specific moment in the great drama of transformation and enlightenment. Consider, for instance, card 6, the Lovers, traditionally associated with the Archangel Raphael. Here we find not merely a symbol of human romance, but a profound meditation on the nature of divine union and the role of the angels as mediators between heaven and earth. The presence of Raphael, whose name means God heals, suggests that true love is a healing force, a restoration of the primordial unity that existed before the fall. Similarly, card 14, Temperance, often depicts an angel pouring liquid between two vessels, representing the alchemical process of solving et coagula, dissolution and recombination. This image speaks to the angelic function of mediation and transformation, the careful balancing of opposing forces that characterizes all spiritual development. The four suits of the minor arcana, wands, cups, swords and pentacles, correspond to the four elements and their associated angelic orders. Wands, fire, the Seraphim and their burning love. Cups, water, the Cherubim and their flowing wisdom. Swords, air, the throne angels and their penetrating intellect. Pentacles, earth, the material manifestation of divine order. This fourfold structure reflects the Hermetic axiom as above, so below, suggesting that the material world is a reflection of celestial patterns. Each suit thus becomes a ladder of ascent, a means by which consciousness can climb back to its divine source. From a Jungian perspective, the angelic imagery of the tarot represents various aspects of the individuation process, the journey towards psychological wholeness. The angels in these cards can be understood as archetypes, autonomous complexes that guide and challenge us on our path to self-realization. For instance, the High Priestess, card 2, often associated with the angel Metatron, represents the anima or feminine aspect of the psyche, the intuitive wisdom that balances rational consciousness. The Hierophant, card 5, linked to the angel Uriel, embodies the archetypal wise old man, the inner teacher who initiates us into sacred mysteries. The 22 cards of the major arcana are often mapped onto the 22 paths of the Kabbalistic tree of life, creating a complex system of correspondences between angelic forces and human consciousness. Each path represents a particular type of spiritual energy or divine attribute, mediated by specific angelic intelligences. This mapping creates a detailed roadmap of spiritual evolution, showing how consciousness can ascend through various levels of reality, from the material world of Malkuth to the divine crown of Keter. The angels serve as guides and guardians along this path, helping to transmute lower forms of consciousness into higher ones. The angelic symbolism of the tarot has practical applications in spiritual development and psychological growth. Through meditation on these images and their associated angels, one can activate specific spiritual frequencies within consciousness, harmonize different aspects of the psyche, access higher states of awareness and understanding, and navigate the challenges of spiritual transformation. In our modern world, increasingly dominated by materialistic and reductionist paradigms, the angelic symbolism of the tarot offers a much-needed bridge to the transcendent. It provides a structured system for understanding and working with subtle energies and higher states of consciousness, while remaining grounded in practical psychology and personal development. The tarot's integration of angelic lore with psychological insight makes it a particularly valuable tool for contemporary seekers who wish to combine spiritual aspiration with psychological understanding. It offers a middle way between pure mysticism and secular rationality, showing how these apparently opposing approaches can be reconciled in a higher synthesis. The angelic symbolism of the tarot represents one of the most sophisticated and comprehensive systems for understanding the relationship between human and divine. By studying and working with these symbols, we gain access to ancient wisdom about the nature of transformation and the role of celestial intelligences in guiding human evolution. As we face the challenges of an increasingly complex and fragmented world, This symbolic system offers valuable psychological integration and spiritual lessons. The angels of the tarot continue to serve as bridges between heaven and earth, guides to the mysteries of consciousness. The Book of Life. Few philosophical concepts and speculations are as deep and provocative. This celestial record, mentioned across diverse spiritual traditions, is a divine ledger of souls and symbolizes as a profound metaphor for the relationship between consciousness, memory, and eternal being. The Book of Life emerges in religious literature as a multivalent symbol, simultaneously representing the divine memory in which all events, past and future, are eternally present, the archetypal patterns underlying creation, the record of human souls and their spiritual destinies, the interface between temporal and eternal dimensions of being. As the 13th century Kabbalist Rabbi Moses de Leon writes in the Zohar, "Before creation, God looked into the Torah, which served as the divine blueprint. In it were inscribed all the secrets of creation, all the generations of humanity, and all the souls that would ever exist." This conception of a primordial text that precedes and structures reality itself finds fascinating parallels across cultures. In Egyptian tradition, we encounter Thoth's celestial library, while Norse mythology speaks of the Akashic records written in the atom. From a depth psychological perspective, the Book of Life can be understood as a powerful symbol of what Jung termed the objective psyche, the transpersonal dimension of consciousness that transcends individual ego awareness. As Jung writes in Psychology and Religion, the archetypal idea of a book of wisdom, a book of life, or a divine record of all events represents the collective unconscious as a repository of all human experience and potential. This psychological reading illuminates several key aspects: the relationship between individual and collective memory, the role of narrative in structuring consciousness, the interplay between fate and free will in human development, and the archetypal nature of divine wisdom and revelation. Central to many traditions' understanding of the Book of Life is the role of angelic scribes, particularly Metatron, often called the celestial scribe or chancellor of heaven. These angelic recorders serve multiple functions, witnessing and documenting human actions, preserving the archetypal patterns of creation, mediating between divine and human consciousness, facilitating the process of spiritual accounting and judgment. The 16th century mystic Isaac Luria elaborates on this theme. Each soul has its own letter in the Torah, and these letters are watched over by the angels who serve as guardians of the divine script. Through their ministry, human actions become inscribed in the eternal record. The concept of the Book of Life raises profound questions about the nature of reality and consciousness. If all events are already written, what role does free will play? How does divine foreknowledge relate to human agency? What is the relationship between temporal and eternal dimensions of existence? How does individual consciousness relate to the divine mind? The medieval philosopher Maimonides asked these questions in his Guide for the Perplexed. The Book of Life should be understood as expressing the perfect knowledge of God, in which all possibilities and their outcomes are eternally present. In many esoteric traditions, the Book of Life serves as both a goal and means of spiritual transformation. Access to its contents represents a form of divine illumination, or gnosis. This initiatory dimension is evident in various practices: contemplative reading of sacred texts as a mirror of the celestial book, meditation on divine names and letters, ritual practices aimed at aligning human and divine consciousness, techniques for accessing Akashic or cosmic memory. The symbolism of the Book of Life continues to resonate in contemporary contexts. Information theory and quantum physics, universe as information. Cognitive science, memory and consciousness. Digital age concepts, universal data and cosmic computation. Environmental awareness, Earth as living record. The Book of Life represents a profound metaphor for the relationship between consciousness, memory and being. Because it suggests that reality has both manifest and unmanifest dimensions, consciousness plays a fundamental role in cosmic processes. Human actions have eternal significance, and divine wisdom is accessible through various modes of knowing. The Book of Life stands as one of humanity's most profound and enduring metaphors for understanding the relationship between temporal and eternal dimensions of existence. Its rich symbolism continues to offer insights into the nature of consciousness, destiny, and divine human interaction. As we face contemporary challenges around information, memory, and meaning, this ancient symbol provides valuable perspectives on how individual consciousness relates to the universal mind, and how human actions participate in eternal significance. Friends, let us venture into perhaps the most whispered system of spiritual thought ever conceived, the living mystery that is Kabbalah. I say living because Kabbalah is a vibrant, pulsing reality that continues to illuminate the depths of human consciousness and the heights of divine possibility. Think of Kabbalah as a kind of sacred mathematics of the soul, a precise science of spiritual transformation that maps the architecture of both cosmos and consciousness. The medieval Kabbalists, those audacious explorers of inner space, understood something that modern physics is only now beginning to grasp: that reality is fundamentally interconnected, that consciousness and matter are interwoven in ways that defy our conventional categories of thought. Consider the tree of life we just discussed. Here we have a living map of all existence, from the infinite nothingness of Ein Sof, down through the 10 Sephirot to the material realm of Malkuth. Each Sephira represents a level of consciousness, a mode of being, a particular frequency of divine light. The Sephirot, writes the great Moses Cordovero, are like channels through which the divine light flows, each one coloring that light according to its particular quality. What an extraordinary image! Imagine consciousness itself as a kind of spectrum, with different levels of awareness corresponding to different wavelengths of divine illumination. But here's where it gets really interesting, my friends. The Kabbalists teach that these same structures that exist in the macrocosm of creation are mirrored in the microcosm of human consciousness, as above, so below, but not in some simplistic mechanical way. Rather, human consciousness is understood as a living tree of life, a dynamic system of spiritual energies that can be awakened, balanced, and integrated through practice and contemplation. This is why the study of Kabbalah was traditionally restricted to those over 40 who had already mastered the conventional religious teachings. The system is so powerful, so precise in its understanding of consciousness, that it can be dangerous if approached without proper preparation. It's like handling high-voltage spiritual electricity. Extraordinary potential, but not without risk. Think about it. What happens when you start to consciously engage with these forces? When you begin to recognize that your own psyche is structured according to these divine patterns, the implications are staggering. You're activating these very forces within your own consciousness. The brilliant psychologist Carl Jung understood this when he encountered Kabbalah. He recognized in its symbolism a precise mapping of the individuation process, the journey of the psyche toward wholeness. The Sephirot became for him archetypes of transformation, living symbols that could catalyze profound psychological development. But here's the thing that often gets missed in academic discussions of Kabbalah. The Kabbalists understood that human consciousness plays a crucial role in the larger drama of cosmic evolution. Through our spiritual practice, through our work with these divine energies, we actually participate in the Tikkun Olam, the repair and perfection of creation itself. Consider the radical implications of this teaching. Each of us, through our inner work, through our engagement with these spiritual forces, is helping to advance the evolution of consciousness. This is why the great Kabbalist Isaac Luria taught that the breaking of the vessels, that primordial catastrophe that scattered the divine sparks throughout creation, was built into ourselves, creating the possibility for human consciousness to participate in bringing creation to its ultimate fulfillment. The purpose of all creation, writes Luria, is that the lower beings should raise up the fallen sparks from their exile. Think about what that means. Every act of consciousness, every moment of awareness, every effort to grow and transform ourselves contributes to this cosmic process of redemption. But let me tell you something even more extraordinary. The Kabbalists teach that this process works both ways. As we work to integrate and elevate our consciousness, as we align ourselves with these divine patterns, we become channels for higher forces to enter the world. We become, in a very real sense, partners with the angels in the work of cosmic transformation. This is why the study of angelic hierarchies is so central to Kabbalah. The angels represent actual forces of consciousness, specific frequencies of divine energy that we can learn to channel and express. When we work with the Sephirot, when we engage in meditation and prayer, we're actually tuning ourselves to these angelic frequencies. Remember what the Zohar says: there is no word, no small whisper, that does not have its angel. Everything in creation, every thought, every feeling, every action is connected to these higher forces. The question is, are we conscious of these connections? Are we working with them intentionally? This is the challenge and the opportunity that Kabbalah presents to us. It offers a precise technology of consciousness, a method for aligning ourselves with these divine patterns and becoming conscious channels for their expression in the world. The practice of Kabbalah is not about escaping the world. It's about transforming it from within. It's about recognizing the divine potential inherent in every moment, every experience, every aspect of our lives. As the Baal Shem Tov taught, in everything there are holy sparks, no thing is empty of them. So my friends, as we contemplate these teachings, let's remember that we're engaging with a living system of transformation, a precise science of consciousness that can help us fulfill our highest potential and contribute to the evolution of all creation. The tree of life is not only a symbol, it's a living reality within us, waiting to be awakened. The angels are not just mythological beings. They're forces of consciousness that we can learn to work with. And we ourselves are not just passive observers. We're players. Let's approach these teachings with the reverence they deserve, but also with the willingness to apply them in our lives. For as the Zohar reminds us, the world exists only in virtue of those who make themselves as nothing. It's through the transcendence of ego, through the alignment with these higher patterns, that we fulfill our true purpose and help to bring creation to its ultimate perfection. In this light, Kabbalah becomes not just a subject of study, but a path of transformation, a way of participating in the divine drama of creation. And each of us, through our engagement with these teachings, becomes a living letter in the cosmic book of life, helping to write the next chapter in the eternal story of consciousness, evolving toward its divine potential.